Okay, I'm going to show you a sort of basic patch on the Moog system, because it's a good way of sort of seeing how the signal flow works and explaining what all the different modules do. So first off, we can just listen to an oscillator. What I want to do is send the oscillator through a filter, so we'll listen to the output of the filter, which is here, and then send the oscillator into it. Okay, but what we actually want to do is control the frequency of this. Instead of doing it by hand, we'll use an envelope to do it. So we've got a patch in an envelope. So the input to the envelope, and we're going to send the trigger from the sequencer and send the output of the envelope to the input of the filter control. So when we start the sequencer, it will send out the clock to the envelope, which will then send the envelope to control the filter. And then we can change the decay on this. So what we're going to do now is send the sequencer voltages out to control the frequency of the oscillator, so that it makes a little melody. And before I do that, I'm going to send it out, the output of the voltage from the sequencer, I'm going to send it to a quantizer so that it jumps in perfect semitones rather than just sort of random voltages. So we send the output voltage from the sequencer into a quantizer, and then the quantizer to the input of it doesn't reach to the input of the sorry, I need a longer lead of the oscillator, which is here. So now when I start it, these are now controlling the pitch of that oscillator. So each time I change the voltage on each of these steps, it'll change the pitch. Okay, another thing you can do is send the voltage to control the frequency of the filter as well. And then you can just play with all the different parameters, like the decay level, the filter settings, pulse width, or the frequency. Cool. Right, so I've got a similar kind of patch set up on this ARP modular to the one that we did on the Moog, but it's a completely different way of getting to that result on this thing. But essentially it's the same idea. You've got oscillators, filters, envelopes and a sequencer. That's what I'm using at the moment on this patch. And what you have to do is read off the output values on each module, and then line the slider up with one of these numbers here, which then eventually kind of all line up with what's ever in line with it there, eventually going to the output, which is on that mini jack. So if I start the sequencer, I'll then sort of play around with the settings and you can see what happens. So our sequencer is here just sending out a clock to the envelope. And pitch is going out to the input of the oscillator here. And then the oscillator is going out into a filter, which is here. I've also got some other modulation being done on this oscillator. I've set up a similar patch on the Roland 100M, which it uses a similar kind of assortment of modules, oscillator, filter, envelope and sequencer, just so you can kind of hear a comparison. So if I start the sequencer, I've already patched it, so if I start the sequencer I'll then play around with the sound. So you can hear it's really like sharp and attacky filters. Okay, so this is the Surge modular again. I'm going to show you a similar patch to the previous ones with a sequencer, oscillator, envelope and filter. But I might sort of try to, adapt the patch as we go a bit to sort of make it more interesting. So this is the filter. This is the oscillator. Sequencer. That's the clock for the sequencer. So what I might do is start cross-modulating the oscillator with some other oscillators. I'm just going to sort of randomly patch away and see what happens, really. Sometimes get interesting results just by messing about with it. Alright, this is the VCS3. It doesn't have a sequencer, so I can't set exactly the same kind of patch up on it as I have done on the other ones, but you'll get an idea of kind of where, Doctor Who got their sounds from. So what this patch is essentially is just the three oscillators kind of inter oscillating each other, which gives it that stepping kind of thing, and then it going into a filter, and then the filter's actually going into spring reverb, which is, it's got a built-in spring reverb, and that's all that's happening at the moment. So if I turn the reverb up, kind of very space alien-y. So this is the Modular 200E. It's really kind of odd synth to use, and I've kind of set something up on it, but I'm not sure how much use it's going to be to explain it. But as you can see, it's just a kind of mess of patch chords. And what I've done is I've kind of slowly put together a patch and then adapted it as I've gone along. And now I don't really know where anything is anymore, but it still sounds kind of interesting. So it does have a sequencer here in the middle. It's got oscillators here. It's got a filter there and here, and a kind of mixer thing here. Envelopes are here, but they're none of them are kind of regular. They all sort of do things in a weird way. So I'm going to change the preset to the next one, see what happens. Okay, so I'm just going to mess about, see what happens here. Okay, so that's a sort of crazy patch on the buchla.